Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Quirkjian, I'm his son Jeff Quirkjian, and this is our second week doing 3 episodes back to back to back in a week. So today we're going to get takeaways, Quirkjians on a crazy baseball weekend. Tomorrow, because the NFL draft is coming up this week, we're going to have Mel Kiper, who obviously is just a character of all characters, Dad, and an NFL expert and a draft expert for ESPN.
Right. Can't wait for Mel. Wait till you listen to how weird Mel is, but weird in a really good way.
And then, of course, another episode on Thursday to get you through your work week. So wherever you're listening right now, make sure to hit that subscribe button, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. We're there. And you can also listen at greatgameorwhat.com. Share the podcast with a friend. Easter weekend is behind us, Dad. Unfortunately, and I think a lot of families go through this, there was some sickness in the Quirkjian family, so we were unable to all be together. We were supposed to be doing this episode together, but Dad, in natural dad fashion, I get a weekend at home when I was supposed to be traveling. So what did I do? Did I go out and play golf with friends? No. Did I spend extra time with the family? Kind of. What I did was completely repainted the playground in my backyard, because when my wife found out that we aren't traveling this weekend, she said, time for projects.
Jeff,
So I completely redid our playground, sanded it, stripped it, repainted it, and then I redid the border that the playground sits on and brought in all new mulch.
Jeff, I'm going to ask you again. Are you sure you are my son? Because as we've acknowledged from the Poor Pop-Pop segment on this podcast, that I stink at so many things. All I tried to do for Easter weekend was put a picture of Brooks Robinson, a poster of Brooks Robinson, into a frame. A child could have figured this out, and I couldn't. So I had to give it to your mom, my wife, Kathy, who, of course, did it in 5 minutes, did it perfectly. Whereas you were out painting and putting together an entire playground in your backyard. I am so honest to God, Jeff, so proud of you. I just don't know how you're so good at this when you are my son.
You know, I did make a standard dad mistake, though, and that was completely underestimating how much mulch we would need. I think every man and woman who has done any yard work has done that. We got 20 bags, Dad.
Not enough.
I went back, get this, I went back to the store. I got 20 more bags.
Right.
And then I laid out 20 bags, and I'm going back after we record the podcast to get 20 more. So, Dad, not only did I miss it, I missed times 3.
Right.
Think about how bad that is.
Jeff, I've done it before. I've multiplied it by 4 and still not had enough, which is why I don't do the mulch anymore, because I'm not very good at it, and I'm really bad at counting.
You ever look at it and you're like, oh, if I just doubled what I did, that would be good. And now I was completely wrong. So that was my Easter weekend. To everybody else who celebrated, a happy Easter to you. And we're excited, Dad. Let's dive right in, because you said before we even started recording, this was a crazy weekend in baseball. And you are not prone to hyperbole, Dad. So I'm excited to hear what you have for the takeaways.
Well, we have to start with Friday at Wrigley Field. The Cubs beat the Diamondbacks 13-11. 16 runs were scored in the 8th inning. That's the most runs scored in any inning in the history of Wrigley Field, which of course goes back over 100 years. It was insane. It was the first 9-inning game ever in which both teams scored at least 10 runs from the 7th inning on. So the Diamondbacks got 10 runs in the top of the 8th. The Cubs got 6 in the bottom of the 8th to win. So the Cubs became the 7th team ever to give up 10 runs in 1 inning in a game and still win the game, which is incredible. But the most interesting part to me was that the official score in the game gave the victory to Ryan Presley, who pitched the 9th inning for the Cubs in a save situation. He comes into the game ahead 13-11. He pitches the top of the 9th, which in any case is a save. Instead, the official score gave him the victory because he thought that Ethan Roberts, who had gotten the last out of the top of the eighth, therefore would have made him the winning pitcher because the team took the lead in the bottom of the eighth. The official score used his discretion here and gave the save to a no save in the game. He gave the win to Ryan Presley because he didn't feel like anyone deserved the victory for the Cubs who had pitched in that eighth inning. Do you follow this?
Well, it's because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ethan Roberts only faced 2 batters. The first batter he faced, he gave up a solo homer, and then he got 1 out. So he pitched 1/3 of an inning, gave up 1 run, and recorded 1 out. So the official scorer has the discretion to determine, was it a winning outing? Was it an outing that deserved the win? And I think it was a great call. Some people might say, oh, overreach, but because technically, yes, he was the pitcher of record when they came back and won, but he didn't do it. He gave up a run. He got 1 out. I don't think he put in the work to deserve the win. So I love the call on the official scores.
Right. The official scorer has the discretion to decide win or save in that situation. So I got 3 different text messages, Jeff, just from friends of mine saying, have I ever seen this before? And the answer is I have. Many years ago, Mariano Rivera was going for the all-time save record, and he was in a similar spot. And the official score gave him a victory because no one else before him pitched effectively enough to get the victory. And Mariano, greatest guy in the world, said, hey, I'd rather have the save than the victory, but they gave him the victory nonetheless. So these things can happen. Just another reminder, official score job is very difficult. And when you ask the official scorer to give more discretion to something, I'm not sure that's always a great idea. The game should tell you exactly who's the winner and who gets the save.
You know I'm jumping ahead, Dad, and we talked about when we wanted to talk about Max Fried, but I think we have to talk about it here now that we're talking about official scorers, right?
Yes, right now. This is it.
So Max Fried actually lost a no-hitter in the 8th inning, but he really lost it in the 6th inning. Let me explain. So the Yankees were playing at Steinbrenner Field against the Rays, and Max Fried gave up an error in the 6th inning. Paul Goldschmidt, the first baseman, tough ball to him. Running to first is the fastest guy in the major leagues right now, and Chandler Simpson for the Rays. And they ruled it, initially, the official scorer ruled it an error in the 6th inning. So we continue. He's got a no-hit bid. Between the top and the bottom of the 8th inning, the official scorer changes that error into a hit. So Max Fried lost his no-hit bid while he wasn't even on the mound.
Okay, now, Jeff, look, first off, I watched the play with Paul Goldschmidt, who's an excellent defensive first baseman. I would have scored that a hit initially because it was a tricky second hop, not an easy play. And if you watch where Goldschmidt was on that play, he is ranged way towards second base. Max Fried, great fielding pitcher, would have really had to move in order to beat Chandler Simpson to first base. He might be the fastest player in the league. He's 3.9 from home to first in the minor leagues. So what I would have looked at was, even if Goldschmidt had handled that ball cleanly, would he have been able to get it to Max Fried on the run to beat Chandler Simpson to first? I would have scored it a hit. Now, Jeff, again, the official scorer has the discretion to change his call at any point during the game, and you can change it after the game once it is reviewed. It was just a cumbersome situation that Max Fried lost his no-hitter without giving up a hit. But normally, Jeff, it's the other way around. Normally, a guy's got a no-hitter, and suddenly, he's given up a hit, and they change it to an error in order to, protect his no-hitter, which you shouldn't do. But Bill Matthews, in this case, made a decision that he made a mistake earlier in the game that should have been scored a hit. I know it's tricky, but I am all for the official scorer doing what he did because, again, it's a really, really hard job. When you examine that play, I think it's a hit.
Let's move on. More takeaways from the crazy weekend in Major League Baseball. What do you got?
Well, Yamamoto of the Dodgers is off to an amazing start. Dodgers, of course, are still, at least through Sunday, behind the Padres, who are really good. But Yamamoto, he first 5 starts, 35 strikeouts, 1.00 ERA. So the last Dodger to have an ERA that low with that many strikeouts through 5 starts was Fernando Valenzuela in 1981, which was arguably the greatest start to a season by any pitcher ever. And that was Valenzuela's amazing 1981 season. Just a reminder how good the Dodgers starting pitching is. And Yamamoto who was good last year, then got hurt. He's even better this year. And then there are the Brewers, the relentless, aggressive Brewers. Jeff, Sunday they stole 9 bases in one game. Okay, Jeff, there are 2 teams, the Tigers and the A's, who don't have 9 stolen bases this year. And the Brewers did it in one game. Jeff, we're trying to bring the athleticism back into the game by making the bases bigger and the rule where you can't throw over, to first base more than twice without it being a balk, all that stuff. It's working, but this is how the Brewers play. They put pressure on you all the time with the way they run the bases. Also, Eugenio Suarez, I got a kick out of this. He plays, Jeff, for the Diamondbacks. So he's at the plate the other day. I don't know if you saw this, but a pitch went in the dirt and then kind of bounced up in the air while Eugenio Suarez is at the plate. He reflexively takes his right foot and dribbles the baseball on his foot like 2 or 3 times. And then using his left foot, he kicks the ball over towards the dugout. You know what this shows me, Jeff? It shows me that he used to play soccer. And one reason that he's a good Major League Baseball player is his feet really work. I'll never forget, I did a story on Omar Vizquel, 30 years ago about being this unbelievable great defensive shortstop. So I went to see him in Seattle in the offseason on Super Bowl Sunday, by the way. And while I was talking to him for this story, we go out into his garage and there's a soccer ball in his garage. And he takes the soccer ball and just dribbles it on his foot for like 3 minutes without losing it. And I said, Omar, when's the last time you did that? He goes, I haven't dribbled a soccer ball in 10 years. 3 minutes. He bounced it off his foot because he had such great feet. Another reminder. So that Jose Iglesias guy, the great singer, who's also a really good baseball player, Omar Vizquel told me, and I thought Omar had the greatest hands I've ever seen on anyone. He said, Jose Iglesias' hands are just as good as mine. But the reason I'm even better than him defensively is because of my feet. So never, ever, ever lose track on a baseball player how important his feet are. And we saw that from Eugenio Suarez.
Does it make any difference that Eugenio Suarez and Omar Vizquel have all of the vowels in both of their names? Or is that not relating?
I am so proud of you. I taught you about Eugenio Suarez and all the vowels, but I did not recognize that Omar Vizquel had all the vowels too. Jeff, boy,
one of your favorite guys.
I have corrupted you so badly. All right, last thing, Jeff. Yesterday at Fenway Park, Monday at Fenway Park, they started a game at 11:10, which they do once a year at Fenway Park. It's a special day, and they start a baseball game at 11:10. And I only bring this up because Dustin Pedroia, one of your favorite players, because you're about the same height as Dustin Pedroia, he used to show up, Jeff, to every game 8 hours before the game began. So if it's a 7 p.m. start, he would be there at 11 a.m. David Ross was once a teammate of his, and David Ross is going out for breakfast at 11 o'clock in the morning, and he lives in the same neighborhood as Dustin Pedroia. He sees Pedroia and he goes, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to the ballpark. And David Ross goes, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. The game's in 8 hours. The point is, when the Red Sox played that 11 a.m. game when Pedroia was there, he would get to the ballpark at 3 o'clock in the morning. He would alert all the clubhouse guys and all the security guys, I'll be here at 3 in the morning. You better be here for me. How about that, Jeff?
I love that. That work ethic is next level from Petey.
Well, that's what he needed to do in order to be ready to play. Get there 8 hours in advance.
Let's jump into the Quirkjians from the weekend. What do you have?
Well, that 13-11 game was an entire Quirkjian, but we also kind of had one Sunday where the Reds beat the Orioles 24-2. And Noelvi Marte and Austin Wynns of the Reds, the 8 and 9 hitters in the game, drove in 13 runs. So the last time any 8-9 hitters drove in that many runs was the famous August 22, 2007 game when the Rangers beat the Orioles 30-3, and Jared Saltalamacchia and Ramon Vasquez in that game combined for 14 RBIs out of the 8 and 9 spots in the order. And that game, of course, was also played at Camden Yards, which I got such a big kick out of. So in that 30-3 victory, Wes Littleton, if you remember, got the save, which we got such a kick out of because his team won the game by 27 runs. And he got the save because he pitched the last 3 innings of the game effectively. And by rule, you get the save for doing that. And yesterday, Sunday, Randy Wynn of the Reds got the save, his first career save in a game that his team won by 22 runs, which how is he ever going to forget his first career save? He got it in a game which his team won 24-2. And the other thing, of course, which was mentioned to me several times by my dopey friends, and that's why I love them, is so the battery at the end of that game was Randy Wynn and Austin Wynns. So that was our battery at the end of the game. People ask me if I noticed that. The answer is, what else do I notice? Those are the only things I really care about, are goofy, crazy things like that.
Well, speaking of, I want to shout out JJ Elliott, who messaged us on Instagram at Great Game or What. You can see exclusive videos and more on our Instagram page, Dad. He said, Saturday in Baltimore, Hunter Green pitched against Brandon Young, making his MLB debut. This is the newbie matchup. It's Young against Green. You know, when somebody is green to something.
All right.
I thought that was pretty creative.
Look, anytime that our listeners and our viewers are adding to the show, you can count me in. Young and Green. I like it. That's good. All right. Also this week, Jeff, the Pirates won a game 1-0. O'Neill Cruz led off the game with a homer, and that was the only run scored in the game. 1-0 on a home run hit by the first batter of the game. The Pirates have been around for well over 100 years, and that is only the second time a Pirate player ever led off a game with a homer, and they ended up winning that game 1-0. Carlos Garcia did it 1993 against the Marlins.
And for me, O'Neill Cruz is the only player in Major League Baseball history that I can think of that has a name better if it were switched. He should be Cruz O'Neill. Every time I see his name, I think, it just doesn't feel right to me.
Well, you know he was named after Paul O'Neill. That's why he's got the first name O'Neill Cruz.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And speaking of Cruz, Jeff, Dylan Cruz of the Nationals, different spelling, Crews, great young prospect. He went 60 at-bats this year, 60 plate appearances this year without an RBI. And then he drove in 4 runs in one game. So I checked with Frank at the Elias. When's the last time anyone went 60 plate appearances into a season without an RBI and then got 4 of them in the next game? Rodolfo Castro did that for the Pirates in 2022. He was the last guy to do it. But
wow.
Things like that jump out to me. All right, so Jackson Holliday hit his second grand slam, member of the Orioles. So Frank Robinson played 6 years for the Orioles. He only hit 2 grand slams in 6 years. Frank, one of the great home run hitters of all time. But he hit both those grand slams in the same game. against the Senators in 1970. I mean, what are the odds of that? In fact, Frank's final 13 seasons, he only hit 2 grand slams total, and they both came in the same game.
That's crazy. And Jackson Holliday's only 21 years old, and he's done it twice for the Orioles.
Right.
On this date in baseball history, Dad, what do you have for us?
All right. Well, in 1970, Tom Seaver struck out 19 San Diego Padres in a 2-1 victory. First off, Jeff, nobody finishes a 2-1 game these days, right? There's always a reliever to pitch the ninth. But the point is, Tom Seaver set a major league record with 10 consecutive strikeouts in that game. The point is, it was the last 10 batters he faced. Think about that for a minute. Talk about being strong at the end. The last 10 batters of that game against Tom Seaver struck out. So he struck out the last guy of the 6th inning and then struck out the side in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's how great Tom Seaver was. We will be talking about him later in this week when we talk about the greatest Mets of all time. And last thing, Jeff, on this date, April 22nd, Tito Francona's birthday. He is 65 years old, I want to say, today. So a happy birthday to Tito. We had him on the podcast just about a year ago this time when he was retired manager. Now he's the manager of the Cincinnati Reds. Do you remember any great stories from Tito a year ago?
Well, my favorite story is the fact that when I had the opportunity to sing the national anthem in Cleveland before a then Indians game, he looked at me, and Dad, you introduced us. I had met him before, but reintroduced us, and he had said, you said, Jeff singing the national anthem, this is going to be great. And he says, oh, way to go, Jeff. Don't F it up. And it totally loosened me. And we talked to him about that because it was one that I will always remember as a longtime performer. That's one thing that was really awesome.
Terry Francona offering that. Of course, my favorite Tito story, and I'm going to tell it again because it's my favorite. His first year, his only year at ESPN, they put me in charge of him for some reason because his sense of direction is so bad. He needed someone to get him around. So I'm covering spring training with Tito Francona. And the first place they put us on our spring training tour was a place called Camp Wilderness. It was a Disney property, Jeff. It was not a hotel. It was a set of cabins set in the woods. You got your own little cabin. So I can't believe what we're looking at here. And Tito checks into his cabin and he calls me like 5 minutes later because they're like, Jeff, it was like there were bunk beds in there. It was like we were in the Cub Scouts and we're both grown men. And he had won 2 World Series as the manager of the Boston Red Sox. So after about 5 minutes, he called to see if I have the same setup there because he thought it was a joke. He thought like people were going to jump out and say, no, you're not really staying here. So 5 minutes later, he calls me back in my cabin and says, hey, do you want to come over to my cabin? We can go out in the backyard and make some s'mores. That's what it was like being with Tito.
He is the man. He is the absolute best. So a happy birthday to Terry Francona. Thank you so much for being a guest last year. You can always go back. All of the episodes are archived wherever you're listening right now. So go back if you missed that interview, especially keeping in mind that we interviewed him while he was on the beach, so to speak. He wasn't managing at the time, and he was just playing golf a lot. So for Cincinnati Reds fans, if we want to get to know Terry Francona even better, maybe go back to season 1 of Is This a Great Game or What? Scroll around, find Terry Francona because he was a heck of a fun interview.
Right. Now, Jeff, I need to clarify something from last week's podcast where we talked about, because, you're a former umpire, little level. I'm a former umpire, equally small level. But remember, we said last week that any runner who intentionally gets hit by a ground ball, and therefore the ball is dead, batter gets a hit, the umpire has the discretion to say, no, you can't do that. You can't step in front of a double play ball, get hit on purpose, so you only get 1 out on the play. What I learned from Rich Mazzotti, who's my umpire expert out there. Rich told me a story on why that rule was changed. And in 1957, Don Hoke, a very good third baseman for the Pirates during his day, a very good defender, is in that spot as a base runner, first and second ground, and he's running to third on this, okay? Ground ball to the shortstop that he knows is going to be a routine double play. John Hoke not only intentionally let it hit him, he caught the ball. He fielded the ball. And it was that play, according to Rich Mazzotti, that's when baseball changed the rule that you cannot do anything like that, because a really clever guy like Don Hoke says, if I get hit by this, there's only one out. And they said, no. He not only got hit by it, Jeff, he fielded a ground ball. Just amazing.
And that was all the jumping off point from the almost no-hitter from the UNC pitcher,
Right.
in which the final out was made because a runner on first who reached not from a hit, but reached otherwise, was hit by a batted ball, and the game was over. And everybody celebrated like it was a no-hitter, but not technically, by the rules, that's a hit for the batter and an out on the base paths because he was hit by a batted ball. And that's it stood. And the point of that was, Dad, even though we're saying the same thing, it's different. There was, in my opinion, no chance for that first base or second baseman to field that ball. It would have been in right field. It would have been a hit. So
right. That is the correct call, Jeff. Again, The official scorer has he made the right call, because you can't punish a hitter just because it hit a batter when that ball clearly would have gone in. So a pitcher lost a no-hitter on the final play of the game, and the final play of the game was a hit, which is just incredible.
Yeah, we have a little bit of time on today's podcast. Can we rip them really fast and do It's in the Cards?
Of course.
I've had this pack next to me for like months, and we need to rip them. It's been a while. Dad, we did not find the Paul Skeens rookie card, by the way.
Yes, I'm well aware.
It wasn't us, so we can't retire early. Trey Cabbage of the Angels is our first pull out of this deck of cards. And
right. I believe he was on our all-Irish team, right?
Was.
Our all-St. Patrick's Day team, all right? We couldn't find anyone named Bob Corned Beef, but we had Trey Cabbage on our all-St. Patrick's Day team.
We go into Anthony Rizzo of the New York Yankees is our next pull.
Yeah, love Anthony Rizzo. Not playing this year. His career might be over. Who knows? I just know Anthony Rizzo was one of my favorite guys to cover. He used to tell me every spring training he would go there to spring training, even in the prime of his career. And he would struggle so badly, as all hitters do at the beginning of spring training. He would always ask himself, can I still do this? Can I still hit in the major leagues? That's how difficult that skill is, especially today.
One of your favorites, Jackson Merrill, is our next card from the Padres.
Right. Jackson Merrill on the disabled list, hamstring injury, signed a huge contract, just had a birthday the other day. Maryland guy, really, really good player.
Oh, I didn't realize he was a Baltimore, Maryland guy. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know friends of mine who played against him, saw him in high school, all that, yes.
And his birthday was this past Saturday from Severna Park, Maryland. Wow.
Yeah, 22 years old now, I believe.
And then last, certainly not least, Brian Reynolds of the Pirates. Whoops, I dropped it.
Yeah, Brian Reynolds can really hit, switch hitter. Boy, the Pirates got to score some more runs, though, for Paul Skeens and for everyone else.
I know, that can be the most frustrating. I'd never, ever want to be in a dugout when, a pitcher gives up one run and they lose 1-0, a starting pitcher. It
happens, yeah. All right, Jeff, before we go, Easter weekend, just to recap, was absolutely great. Had such a good time, even though we missed you and McKinley and Emily because of sicknesses and everything else. But I did have one poor pop-pop moment over the weekend, and I think I need to share it. The snake is back at our house, okay? Now, famously, 5 years ago, 2 snakes showed up at our house, both in the garage, both on our doorstep, like wanting to get into the house, scared the life out of me. And Uncle Matt, of course, took care of the snakes. We sent them down to the river and gave them a nice home somewhere away from our house. Well, there was a snake that came back the other day. Jeff, again, I'm sure it's just a black snake. Okay. But it was 5 feet long, and it scared the life out of me because, as far as I'm concerned, it's an anaconda out on our front driveway, and it was close to the house. So I panicked because I'm afraid of everything, and I couldn't. And Uncle Matt isn't here anymore to help me. So all I could do was go in the house and get an umbrella. And I launched the umbrella. I threw the umbrella at the snake. I startled him.
Like a javelin?
I threw it like Mary Poppins. Let's put it that way. It was so bad. And I didn't hit him, so I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't hurt a snake, a harmless black snake. Your cousin Christopher would have been there. He would have just gone out and picked up the snake and put him, in the grass somewhere. But that's Christopher, not me. I'm the opposite. I'm scared to death of snakes. I can't even get, so I threw an umbrella like Julie Andrews at him. It was so bad, but he disappeared. But the point is, he's still around the house. Something to keep in mind for poor Pop Pop.
Let's just say, in retrospect, Dad, you are closer to Julie Andrews than you are to Dick Van Dyke in that movie. Can we just establish that?
That is absolutely clear. Dick Van Dyke, one of the great comedic actors of all time. Dick Van Dyke Show, third greatest sitcom in history to me, behind Get Smart and All in the Family, as long as we're making a list here. And I have a list for everything, as you know.
Well, I'm glad you had a poor Pop because I have about 10 in the bank that I was going to use today. So I'm glad you had one.
Well, we'll use another one on Thursday for our third episode of the week. And let's not forget, what do we have tomorrow, Jeff?
Mel Kiper will join us tomorrow, Wednesday, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And, of course, the NFL Draft Dad starts on Thursday. So what perfect timing to have him, a full episode, just that great interview with Is This a Great Game or What? Mel Kiper joins us.
Right. And there's going to be a lot of football there, of course, but it's mostly a baseball discussion, including the day that he met Brooks Robinson at Joseph A. Bank. I got such a kick out of that. Usually you meet Brooks Robinson, you meet him at the ballpark or at a function.
Hall of Fame or somewhere.
He met him at a men's clothing store. I can't. I just love that story that Mel is going to tell.
Join us tomorrow on Is This a Great Game or What? Thanks for listening. And as always, thank you for being a part of our family.